Wake by Michael Spinelli. Chapter 4. Machinations. After running through a mental checklist of the events of his last normal day leading up to his abduction, he couldn't recall a single detail or clue as to who this maniac was or why this was happening to him. After miles and miles of questions, and yet not even 1 square foot of reply, he thought he would try again. Anything to reach the man. Anything to stop what seemed to be inevitable at this point. Anything but drowning. He thought loudly to himself. Anything. He was going to have to think, and think hard and fast, if he was going to weasel out of this one. He would try again. "Sir!" This was a statement, not a question. "Sir, please! Don't do this!" Jim Jr. stared, desperate in the face of this man who refused to budge. He thought to say something like, "I have a little girl. Don't drown me all the way out here, please." And then he thought better of it. If this man knew anything about him at all, he would know there was no Wolfgang daughter, and just how much did this guy know about him anyway? Was he a random pick, like the serial killers with smarts he had seen on one of his favorite shows, Joe Kinda, Homicide Hunter? No motive, no connection, and if this guy was thorough enough, nothing. And if he did target him specifically, well, that would push things from just plain old scary to flat out terrifying in no time at all. No time to think of anything else. Humanize yourself. Isn't that what Kinda would do? Yeah, humanize. Make them realize that you're a living, breathing person with people and family and feelings and friends and a name. Yes, you have a name, and people will miss you, and someone, anyone, is sure to be looking for you at this very moment. Above all else, not any object to simply be discarded. No, certainly nothing like that. "Sir, I am just a gym teacher from Who Gives an S, Florida. My name is James. My friends and my family call me Jim Jr." He looked down at his feet and conceded. "Unfortunately, to be named Jim Jr. and be a gym teacher. What is your name?" He asked in this most head-tiltingly genuine human response that he could muster. I have a family. Do you have a family?" The man smirked for the briefest of moments and let go of the throttle and powered off the engine. The boat immediately slowed, puttering down to a near standby in seconds. The face of the man driving the boat had evil thoughts scattered amongst it, but then it started to give for the very first time in this long and miserable ride. It was not a look of wire and twisted humor, but a look of sympathy almost. He couldn't quite tell or read this man at all. The boat swayed up and down on the relatively low tide and began to drift starboard a little bit now, because no one was technically or metaphorically at the wheel anymore. Jim Jr. tensed, and the man approached him slow and showy, making certainly as to not capsize the relatively small craft. The hardened-looking man managed to look swift for a moment as he knelt before good old Jim Jr. and closed their distance ever so steadily until they were face level. Eye to eye, the man moved his hand slowly up James Everett Jr.'s cheek. The gym teacher flinched, but the man's hand held steady still, continuing on until the backside of his hand caressed the side of his cold, wet, teary cheek. He felt like screaming in protest, but decided against the notion in favor of seeing just exactly where this bizarre and uncomfortable moment was going. The man's hand continued slowly past his cheek and downward to his neck. Jim Jr.'s freak the F out o-meter was shifting into overdrive as the hand passed from his collarbone to his chest, and it showed. It was written over every goddamn inch of his oh-so-readable face. He started squirming, slowly, even now, trying not to offend. Whoa, whoa, what are you doing? He stuttered as the man's hand near lap level. The man raised his other hand quickly at first, but slower as he brought it closer, sending Jim Jr.'s face back into its original position to avoid it. He folded all of his fingers into his hand, except the pointer, placed a single forefinger over his lips as if to say, shh, and then resumed his downward journey south while maintaining the sweetest, sickest grin to ever befall a human's face at once before. His mouth seemed to widen the closer his hand got to Jim Jr.'s sensitives. He reached JJ's upper thigh, and just as his captive audience was about to mount a full-fledged second attempt at protest, the man clutched the teacher's testicles in their entirety. And what had to have been the world's largest lifting hand, he sent his captive into a backwards reeling motion that left him propped up against the bench on the boat and nowhere else to go but to scream in agony. While Jim screamed, the ever so cruel man that had caused him this unique pain smiled a twisted and crushed his coin purse into oblivion. Jim had enough time to think, me and my big fluffy mouth, and once again he passed into unconsciousness. The dark man, now very pleased and still smiling, let his grip loose and slowly stood back up, walked over to the makeshift chair, restarted the engine, and continued on the path he had been on before he was so rudely interrupted. The man in the bottom of the boat slept uneasy again, dreaming dreams that went from bad to worse. He dreamed all the way back to his age of 8. An undertow had grabbed at him maliciously, pulling him down and down and down. What was he to do? What could he have done? The ocean moved mountains. It had happened so fast. 7 seconds had passed from the time of realization that there was a problem to actually being pulled beneath the surface. Time passed by slowly, oh so slowly, and a saltwater washing machine. After about 10 seconds of that, you finally realize your time is up. Even at age 8, you go, uh-oh. You are out of strength, out of air. You shake, convulse, and contort until almost instantly you go mad and pull in that horrible salt-choked mass of pain and nastiness. So bad that if you were to swallow it, it would feel life-ending or altering at best. However, to pull it into your lungs in the stead of air, that, my friend, is agony. And the man in the bottom of the boat, waiting unconscious-like for a good old-fashioned drowning, was age 37. The boy already drowning in his mind, age 8. There he was, having a grand day at the beach for his summertime birthday, and then he was at last oxygenated second before the inevitable. That stinking knowledge of what was to come, and then all of the sudden, and without warning, he was free of it. He had risen up and out with ease in a slow, dreamlike state. Then that rush of air. You just can't get it in and then out again fast enough. Eventually, after being dragged onto the beach and regaining his full wits, he would regale everyone and anyone who would listen about a tale of horror and woe that he would truly never quite get over. A story of near-breathing devotion and that split-second moment in time. A moment that seemed to branch off into an eternity in his mind where he was sure he was about to die. He would still go to the beach, but when he did, he wore jeans. He would